Welcome back, everybody, to Ravenstar's Witching Hour. I'm your host, Solaris BlueRaven, and my special guest this evening is John Stormm. And I will be taking calls the last half hour of the show, just so you guys know. So you can text in if you want a question, but I'm not answering any calls until the last half hour. We have a lot to cover here. But John, someone does have a question for you here. This is from JB, and she says, I don't want you to end on a negative note, John Stormm, but what is your take on suicide consequences?
Well, that's a very good question. Now I know a lot of Catholics believe in mortal and venial sins, and well, for one, everything happens for a purpose. The fact that we are here is kind of like it's for a purpose. The fact that everybody dies and nobody leaves this world alive also is a purpose, which means in the 70 years or so that we stay here or less or whatever, there's something we're supposed to learn and experience and help us grow to be. This is an essential part of our growing up as souls. When we try to end it ourselves, now the sad thing is most people that suicide because of emotional distress. They feel, and I mean, I can relate to it. I've been in that position where the loss was just so bad, I didn't believe that I could want to live another day, or the idea of living another 20 years with this pain. And I get a lot of physical pain these days, but the idea of living so many years with all of that pain is just unacceptable. And they think, well, the physical pain you can make, that can go away, but the emotional pain, well, that's there in your soul. That's there in your consciousness, your awareness. It's part of you. And committing suicide is not going to. That's the one thing you're definitely going to take with you, is all that pain, and you're going to learn how foolish and that it is. Besides the religious aspects, I tend to avoid those because it tends to make things two-dimensional, and we lose a lot in the translation when we get religious. No matter whose religion, it could even be among witches. There's a lot of religious witches that kind of go through the motions. Well, if I say these words and do these things, it's going to make this happen, and they're not really connected to it. It's just another disconnect. Mm-hmm. But the suicide itself, it's like, sometimes I wonder, well, why am I alive? I'm feeling so much pain and I've had so much loss. And it's like, but go through it anyway, because anytime, the Bible says, reverting back to it, but there's some good stuff in it. There's some really, really, really wise stuff in it. It says, without faith, it's impossible to please God. And when you have faith and you understand that you have a loving Creator, somebody who took the time and the effort to make all this happen so that you could grow and take a piece of yourself and let it grow in its own way and nurture it as best you can. And there is love there. And when you understand that, you're connecting. You're connecting to it, and that's your faith. There's to people that are so spiritually inclined. I'm not talking about religiously inclined. I'm talking about spiritually inclined. To connect on that level, you have a relationship going there. And when you suicide, basically it's a lack of faith. You don't believe that things can change, or that you're going to learn more, or that you're going to grow more from that point. So you terminate it, you end it prematurely before your time. And that is more what I consider the sin. And sin is in the New Testament. It's a Greek word in the New Testament. Well, it's also in the Old Testament, but it's in Aramaic. But I do know something about the Greek part. It's an archery term for missing the mark. And the interesting thing about being an archer is that if you shoot the bullseye, you pick up your bow and arrow for the first time, and you aim at the bullseye and you miss it, if they kill you, you'll never become a good archer. And the Bible will say, well, if we confess our sins, or if we acknowledge our sins before God, He is faithful and just to forgive us our sins. And Jesus kind of brought about this thing. You got grace. If you miss the mark, you're not going to just die for it. We're going to be gracious. We're going to forgive you. You acknowledge, yes, my arrow went a little low and to the left. Okay, so now I'm going to aim a little higher and to the right, and I'm going to come closer to the bullseye. So now we have the potential for growing into a better archer, or in our case, a better soul, a better spirit, a more evolved, growing spirit. So if we suicide, we're kind of screwing that up a bit. There's something to be learned here, even in the hard stuff. The material stuff isn't what's really important. It's what you're getting out of it. It's how you evolve, you mature as a soul. That's the important thing. And your relationship with everything, the universe around you. There's all kinds of stuff around you all the time. Mm-hmm. And when you're in a good mood or in a bad mood, you affect the spirits in your room too, whether they be faith spirits, human spirits, or whatever. You affect even other people, other live people. They're all alive. But I mean, other live people in the room, you have an effect on absolutely everybody. I remember when I was teaching Duncan back when I was teaching him his martial arts, that I taught him, I says, even everything you do affects everyone around you. And this is your martial art. I says, even the flutter of an eyelash or the failure to flutter an eyelash will affect everyone in the room. It's and in his case, I was teaching him when, if you're captured and you're interrogated and they ask you where the troops are, well, if you flutter your eyelash when they say such and such, to them, as they're watching you, that gives it away. That they hit a nerve, so they know that they must be there. So if you flutter it at the wrong time, if your troops are coming in from the north and they say, well, are they coming in from the east? And you flutter the eyelash, they know you're coming in from the east, but actually they're really coming in from the north. You just misled them with the flutter. Mm-hmm. When they're trying to intimidate you or scare you, and you look them straight in the eye and you don't blink at all, you affect them. They know you unhinge them more than they're unhinging you. So everything you do, how you feel, that field around you affects everything, living and those that you don't perceive very well. You affect and interact. They affect you when there's a high EM field in the room, something's in the room with you. It affects you. You feel sorrowful. You feel happy, depending on what kind of spirit it is. And likewise, your spirit interacts with everything else. Mm-hmm. So basically, you're here to connect with all of that. And if you try to, you just kind of hang up the phone and just, that's kind of what you did with the suicide.
Right. Well said, John. There is another question for you from the chat room, JMJ12. Please ask John, in his travels in the other timeline planes, does he interact with people he meets on this one, and has he met his children on other timelines that he doesn't have on this one?
Yeah, actually, I got children on this one that I didn't have on other ones. That's pretty complicated. I do hop timelines. I do hop parallels. Oftentimes, I call this rifting, and I think a lot of other people may do it too. I'll give you a good example. This was a few years ago. I was working at Kodak Park in Rochester, and I go across the Veterans Memorial Bridge. And for a while, there was a lot of changes being made. Now, I thought it might have something to do with some experiments that they were doing at RIT with a bunch of lasers all focused to a one common place, and it caused these ripples, and I'd be picking up on it. But I'm going across the bridge on my way to work, and I noticed down in the gutter, as I'm walking by, there's one of these big little orange work vests for road workers wear. And just something, I saw it there. I made note of it as I'm passing by. There's a day glow. Somebody lost it, and it's just laying there in the gutter next to the sidewalk. On the way back home, I see the day glow orange, and as I get close to it, it's not a worker's vest. It's a day glow orange windbreaker, one of these nylon windbreakers. I thought that's really, I could have sworn that was one of those work vests. And then going back to work the next day, this is, 5 days a week, I'm going back and forth here. And going back the next morning, it's a day glow orange life preserver that fell off a boat. Each time I went by, it was something different. And I remember one morning walking by, and I could see, the Genesee River kind of flows from south to north, and as I look to the north off of the bridge, as the river goes out into the lake, sometimes you can see storms out on the lake. And I thought I saw a flash of something black, and I just kind of stood there and watched. And a little while later, there was another one, and the lightning flashed black instead of white. And I understood that basically what was happening was I was jumping parallels. And my daughter had made mention. Now I got this mole on one side of my face, on my cheek. It's just a kind of like a beauty mark, some would call it, but it's far from it these days. But my daughter never noticed that before, and it's kind of like, well, gee, I had this all the time, and this is my this is Daddy's girl. If anybody knows my face or familiar with it. Yeah, but as I jump, things change. They, come home and there's clothing that I bought that I don't remember ever having bought. Tools that I bought that it's kind of like I didn't need this one. I could have sworn I bought a ball peen hammer, not a claw hammer. So yeah, I experienced that. I imagine a number of other people do, because I can't imagine it's just me affected by that. I've noticed people with me sometimes get transported too. So those happen, but that's a part of that overall cosmology. Now, most people will figure, that was just my imagination. I must have imagined it. I must have been dreaming. It's a little, even when it's deja vu, it's more than just deja vu.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. That's pretty interesting. Yeah, I've had similar events. But, insofar as the orbs go, I know you mentioned that some are human and some are not human, and I was wondering if you could elaborate on that a little bit.
This creator God, the creator of all these multiverses, is an incredibly vast and diverse being. And the diversity, I notice even of faith spirits, there's all different kinds. And people will think, well, we get back into the two-dimensional thought. They think, well, there's male and there's female when we're talking about like polarity and stuff. But there's other things. There's more than just those two genders. There's things that, you say, well, a third, maybe a fourth and a fifth. Besides, even in nature, some things don't procreate the same way. Some things, but they don't need a Mr. and Mrs. They just pop one off of themselves. There's all kinds of creatures. Like I say, some spirits that are human, and some are something else entirely. Never were human. Some angels. I say most angels I wouldn't put them. When in their context, the people that were writing about them when they wrote. Now, most of them, if you look at if we take, I'm just using the Bible because it's the most common, especially in America, that people have some familiarity with. All right, and I love the book. Now I don't look at it the same way as they do with the awe and worship. Parts of it I think I'm just absolutely in awe of. Other parts, not so much. And I understand how those books or those particular 66 writings from 40 some odd authors got put together by Constantine and his group trying to make a religion out of something that wasn't a religion for 300 years before then, from the time of Christ to the time of Constantine. All right, it wasn't a religion. It was, they wouldn't even, first century Christians wouldn't recognize you today. But, when you look at what they were writing at the time, now most of the angels they talked about didn't have wings. There's a story in Judges where Samson's dad was kind of a high priest, and his mom was a bit on the barren side or something. They couldn't have kids, and this angel comes along. But she gets thought as just a guy walking up the road, probably a prophet of some sort or something like that, because he talked kind of strange to her. And he was telling her, hey, a year from now, you're going to actually have a kid. You're going to have a little boy, and he shouldn't be touching a razor to his head or drinking strong drink or anything like that, and she tells her husband about it. So the next time this guy comes along, you have him talk to me, So sure enough, a while later again, this guy comes up again, starts telling about, talk to the husband. He's got to hear this. He tells him about, you're going to have this son, and he's going to be like this. And he says, God told you this? And, yeah, God told me that, and I know this is going to happen. And while he's building this, he's a high priest. While he's building this bonfire thing to offer up a sacrifice, a burnt offering, the man or the angel steps into the fire, doesn't get burnt, and takes off into heaven from there. No wings, just takes off. Right? When they're talking about angels, they're talking about a person, a spirit, not of this earth. Now, from another planet, not necessarily. Maybe another dimension or a parallel, interdimensional type beings. And the fact that they appear as human, well, they could appear as anything. I got a particular friend we call Sundog. And I did a story about him in Book Ricks, and that story isn't a fantasy. It's what we did. It describes exactly what we did, when we did it, and why we were doing it. It's called Parting the Veil of Worlds, where we met Sundog for the first time. Now, Sundog appears as one of these little orbs. And he's usually a little bright blue fella, and about the size of a hardball, the orb itself. But when you see Sundog, and that's not his real name, when you see him in his own dimensionality, he's taller than I am. And I'm about 6'5". And, and he can appear as virtually anything he wanted to. I don't know exactly to what full extent they go. I've seen him in his own particular plane, and I've seen him in ours. But there's scripture that says that the devil himself. Now scripture don't really describe him as horned and red, and forked tail and all that kind of crap either. Yeah, but it says he appears as an angel of light. And of course, when it talks about Lucifer in the Old Testament, it talks about this beautiful cherub or cherubim. All right, now that was allegedly a winged type angel, very beautiful. And it also says he goes about as a lion, roaring lion, seeking who he may devour. He's ruling by fear in that. So they can appear as just about. Some of them can appear as just about anything they want. And since they know you, remember we're looking at Mr. and Mrs. Flat, and we're three-dimensional, they're two-dimensional. We can know them more intimately than they. Well, I'd imagine somebody seventh or eighth dimensional looking at us, and they know you better than you know you, and they know you're scared to death of spiders, and they appear as, and they love the terror. They love to feed off the emotions that you give off when you're terrified. So they appear as a giant spider. Mm-hmm. Or something like Sulfu, or I can't even pronounce that, and I guess we're not even intended to. The Lovecraft monsters there.
Oh, right. Oh.
with the tentacles, can appear as anything. And since they're not human to begin with, they could be anything.
Right. Exactly. That's well said too. Yeah, I'm glad you clarified that a lot. There are so many orbs. I see so many pictures. But, yeah, you guys check out the video. And John, let everybody know how they can get a hold of you. I know you have the YouTube channel and also where they can get your book.
Well, that's at bookricks.com. Actually, there's about 14 or 15 books there.
Okay.
Some of them are just the Witch Clan series, but those are like, some of them are little novelettes, a short story, but they take the craft. I mean, some of them are fiction, but the things that are in them are things that we've done as a family, and these are like family stories, the things that we've done, that put the craft in the context as we know them. So they're cool stories. They're entertaining, but they kind of tell you something as well. But the one book, the Parting the Veil of Worlds, it's not necessarily a fiction. It's given as a story. Kind of tells you what we did and how we did it, and then there's Practical Witchery, which I'm actually still writing, but you can still read it. It's still free. There's a couple full-length novels, Witch Clan Matriarchs and Witch Clan Warriors. Those are full-length novels. They're as e-books. You can download them through your Kindle or whatever, or just to your PC or your laptop and read them through like Adobe Reader or something like that. Practical Witchery, you can do the same. That's not fiction either. That's got a great deal of this stuff that comes up in the videos. You can also reach me on Facebook. I'm not on as often as usual right now because I don't have internet here at home, so I kind of got to go to the library, and I'm there for about an hour or two. I'm narcoleptic, so I never stay out more than a couple hours because sooner or later I'm going to fall asleep, and just don't like the idea of falling asleep out in a public place.
I was going to ask, how long do you fall asleep when you do doze off?
It's hard to tell. Sometimes it can be a few minutes. It could be a half hour, or sometimes as much as 3 hours.
Wow.
Depending. I'll sleep about 12 to 14 hours a day. On really bad days, 18 to 20. But I only had like a handful of those in the last year. But.
Wow. Does that have anything to do with the MK Ultra?
A lot of that probably is what gave me a couple strokes and the diabetes. And at one point, somebody put the snake venom in my insulin. I've been radiated and even when I was working at the hospital, there was like 3 episodes where my dosimeter badge was like way over what it should have been, they kept pulling me out of this area and going to this area, and I'd get radiated. And that's the weird thing is when they read it, basically the dosimeter badge is just a little piece of X-ray film in a badge, and each machine has its own signature of radiation that it gives, so they can tell what machine you got overdosed from, and it was from nothing in the hospital.
Wow.
So for a while there, my hair was falling out and everything, and I was pretty sick, and my teeth were falling out, and it was just awful. I seem to got over most of the effects of that. Ultras, our kind of ultras anyway, are very hard to kill. And I had 2 major strokes, probably more than that. So it's a combination of a number of things. When I went to get checked for it, it says, well, medication you're on will do that to you. The strokes you had will do that to you. The diabetes will do that to you. It's kind of, okay. There's no getting around it. The nice thing is that the sleep it's inconvenient, but it's actually good.
Right.
Because I get away. I dream very vividly, and if I'm not just regular dreaming, then I'm going somewhere and doing some things. It's like when I close my eyes here, I open up my eyes somewhere else, and that's the not so bad part about it.
Oh yeah, lucid travel.
And I'm not in any pain or anything, or I still get the twitches and that my body's still flailing when I'm asleep, but I'm not aware of it, and so I get a break from it all.
Well, that's good. I'm glad to hear that. Anyway, I was going to ask you about some basic protection rituals for someone who can do something that would deflect intrusion or maybe covert attackers? Is there anything you can kind of teach to just a regular Joe off the street?
I say, well, I mean, a lot of those things work. A circle of salt. You can put. It doesn't have to be a circle. You can put salt, border down along by the bottom of underneath your bed. There's aspects of it. The salt itself, the crystalline nature of the salt. That's really good for keeping really bad things away, corruptible things that kind of fall on that end of the spectrum. Those things, it even affects living things that fall on that end of the spectrum. It'll dissolve a leech. It has its effect. But I describe will and word is where the basis of a witch's power. Now, once upon a time, it wasn't just witches that practiced that was anything too. That was how the world did business. It's how the Celtic world in particular did business. Your word, that you didn't have Madison Avenue lying for you and drawing it. If you were a blacksmith or a farmer, and if you put really good crops together and gave really good bargains, word got about, this is who you were, this is what you did, and this is what brought your customers back to you. You could be trusted. Your word, your handshake was everything. Everything was based on it. Your will, that also gives you, when your word is like that, your will has to be like that, because it's like, you're not going to take the easy way out and fib. And your word is going to be your word. You're going to give this way, and hey, if the crop didn't come out that good, you're going to cut them a break on it. And you're going to be known for being that kind of person. And that willpower, that extra willpower, that's your muscle. That's, like when you exercise your muscles, they get stronger. When you exercise your will, it gets stronger. And the stronger your will is, when you meet these other spirits and they enter the room with you, this gives you power with them. This gives you influence with them. The same as if you were a great bodybuilder or a gymnast or a boxer or something like that. When you enter a room full of real bad boys, it's kind of like they give you a certain amount of respect. It shows. Your strength and your power shows. And to these other creatures that are spiritual and more spiritually discerned and spiritually discerning, they discern you to be a person of will. So if you conduct yourself in this way, I have a younger sister, and will and word in our family is a big thing. If you go to if you've been to Ireland or Scotland or Wales or any of those places, and you go to some of the rural districts, you'll find everybody has their character there who is bigger than life for how far he'll go or she'll go in keeping their word. This isn't a Christian thing. This is a holdover from our pagan days, the days when witches and druids were the infrastructure. I have this one sister who just loves to lie through her teeth. Any bargains she makes are absolutely worthless. Well, a lot of times she ends up with some really dark spirits hanging around the house and plaguing things, and I used to have to go clear the house. And about a month later, they'd be back again. Well, the problem is the kind of lifestyle that she had drew those things in.
Right.
So it's kind of like, yeah, we can chase all the flies out of the house, but if you're going to leave the door and the screen doors and the windows open, they're going to come right back in. Right. So a strong will, building up that kind of character and living, get away from the material, start building yourself up spiritually. This doesn't mean to be religious, but to, find out who you are and stick with it.
Absolutely.
And grow with it. That is going to give you more power and more respect and more freedom than anything else. Exactly.
Well said on that one, too. And insofar as the darkness goes, a lot of people are afraid of, obviously, the craft itself, which is a shame. And also the concept of dark, which is obviously not evil, but I was wondering if you could elaborate on that a little bit.
Well, the craft is like a sword. And if the sword is a little too ancient of an analogy, a handgun. Because I'm going to tell you what they both got in common. A sword is not for harvesting wheat. It's not for chopping wood. It's not for cutting vegetables. It's designed specifically for killing people. So is a handgun. A handgun is not made for hunting. You don't go out and go hunting for squirrels or venison with a handgun. I mean, there's handguns that's powerful enough to do that, but nobody does that. It's not built for that. It's not for, it's for killing people. All right? Now, is it evil? No. It's not. It depends on what you're going to do. The craft is the same way. In itself, it is not evil or good. It depends. Your intent is what makes it that way. If you're a psychopathic killer, then it's going to be. It's going to be used as that. That sword is going to be used to murder some innocent or murder some good person. If your intent is more light, you're a protector. And there are dark and evil things out there. It's not all sweetness and light. And sometimes, just saying no and please don't won't stop them. Mm-hmm. And the only way to stop them, the only way to keep bad things, really bad things, from happening to good people is for good people to take up the sword and make them stop.
Yep.
Evil prevails when good men do nothing, or good women, as the case may be. In my family, even my daughters got raised up in martial arts, literally from the cradle. Daddy's little girl can take care of some of your best bullies out there.
Nice, excellent.
So I mean, there is things to be feared, but they should be feared for the right reasons. Me coming up as an ultra, anything that I knew that I could kill, I wouldn't fear. It's like, I'll deal with it. We can be nice. When it gets to the point where it does violence to me, that doesn't mean I'm going to go out killing things. But when violence gets off, violence is my trigger. The minute somebody does something violent, they can come up, they can say bad things, and I'll say bad things back. You can say, well, I think you're this or that, and I'll challenge you on it. I don't mean challenge you to a fight. It's like, where do you get off on this? Well, how do you qualify this statement? I'll argue it. Mm-hmm. But the minute they try to do violence, well, if they just try to do hand-to-hand, I'm probably just going to break their arm. And I can be very, very casual about that. It's real quick. None of these 15-minute fights like you see on the Chop Socky flick. It's over and done like that. If they pick up a deadly weapon, well, this person obviously intends to kill me. And if they don't kill me, what are they going to do with this weaker person behind me, or my mother, or my sister, or my little girl, or anything else? If they have that little regard for my life, chances are they're not going to survive it. That's the dark side of things. It doesn't necessarily mean it's evil. It's just when you're confronted with evil, you might have to take a dark path to just to survive it, or to see that your family and friends or your community survives it. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, it's running free. And when you let it, well, you're as much as agreeing with it, so that makes you just actually, a little more passively as evil as what's going through.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. For sure. If anybody wants to call in, the number is 347-688-2902. I will open the phone lines up right now. And, of course, Freedom Screen on Skype. You can go ahead and call in. Yeah, that's well said, John, for sure. And insofar as the astral traveling goes, now, would you compare that? What's the difference between astral traveling versus a regular dream state?
A regular dream state is kind of like a pocket universe. It's the creative part of your mind. Now, it has a number of functions. Dreams are very, very useful things. It's a very, especially for me right now, it's a very important part of your life. You realize for most people, you spend 1/3 of your life asleep. And most people just pass out those dreams as if they're nothing. Now, one type of dream that people get a lot is what I call the problem solver. Let's sleep on it, or something happens at work or at school, and you're really bugged about it. You don't know what to do. You don't know how to approach it. You don't know how to react or respond to it. And you go home and you're really troubled, and you go to sleep. And in your dreams, you're with the three bears in the woods, and they're giving you a certain kind of argument or a certain kind of confrontation, and you find a way to deal with it. And then that dream just kind of goes away. And the next dream, you're in King Arthur's court, and you find out a couple of these knights are downright snotty, and you've got to deal with this a certain way. And in another dream, you are the president of a nation, and another nation is showing signs of this, that, or the other thing, and other nations are a little more friendly. Basically, you're seeing the same thing being played out in different scenarios, different stages, different. It's kind of like when people or animals cock their head to get a different perspective, and this plays over and over again in your mind. Little pocket universe, something you're creating in yourself to give you a better handle. You're looking at it from different ways and in different contexts to understand it. And by the next morning, you wake up and you've got an idea for how you're going to handle that thing. Then there's the dreams that it's kind of like, I need a break. And you dream about being out on a sunny beach in Cancun or something with a nice cold Corona in your hand, and or maybe that love affair or love loss that you had, you dream of them, and it's a little R&R, and it's a pocket universe. You've created it, and the thing is it's mostly just you, but other people can touch that too. And sometimes you'll find that the thing you dreamed, or the place that you dreamed of, or the person that you dreamed of in that dream, that other people dreamed about them too. And that's when it gets really interesting. It's a little pocket universe, but other things can come walking through it. Now, when you astral project, you may project to another universe, or it may be somewhere in this universe. I've done Mars. I remember back in the late 60s, and I was describing this three-sided pyramid to, he wasn't my brother-in-law then, he was like my best buddy. And, we were doing it for MK Count, or I was doing it for MK Count, and then we'd get home, and, it's kind of like, they were very limiting, it's like usually some military installation, they'd have me remote viewing and that, and more often than not, I was astral projecting to it. And I'd get more information this way. And he says, well, how far can we take this? And I go to the dark side of the moon and check out things there. And I went to Mars, and that's when I saw the face and some different kinds of pyramids. And I thought, well, a Martian pyramid is a three-sided pyramid instead of the four-sided that we got here. But I've also eventually found five-sided and four-sided there too. So it's not just the one. But sometimes, and it wasn't for many, many, many years later when they actually did send satellites and stuff up there that they actually got pictures of these. And it's kind of like, wow, yes, they're there. And it's, how did you think any differently? I've been to places like, I knew I was going to the Orient. I've been to Singapore, but I've been to these places before I went to the places. And I knew my way around when I got there. In a city as big as Singapore, that's saying something. It's also better than AAA.
Wow.
So you can travel in this universe or in other universes. That's more the astral projection and stuff like that. Just the regular dreaming is more like a pocket universe, but still not. You can get traffic through it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. That's a good description of that. There was someone trying to call in there. I added him to the contact, so hopefully he'll be able to get through. Not sure why he wasn't able to get through before. He should have been able to. But anyways, insofar as the consciousness of Mother Earth is concerned these days, taking a good look at the planet, do you think this planet is being terraformed? What's your impression of this collective and the energy of this Earth right now?
Being terraformed?
Well, it seems to me like
it is being terraformed, but she don't like it.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a gender to this. Like I keep referring to the creator God as a he. He does seem masculine, but not entirely masculine. But then again, guys aren't as entirely masculine as they like to think they are, because generally we got the X and Y chromosomes, and it's generally us that determines whether the baby's going to be a boy or a girl anyway. So this masculine creator is also elements of both. Mother is definitely reversed. Danu here, and other planets may be somewhat different. They may be masculine or androgynous, or you name it. There's more than just those two. But she doesn't like it. She is trying to balance. It's like she's very sick. It's like an infection. And this is the extremes of the weather, and the patterns that we're seeing are all as a result of this. She's responding negatively to these things. And some of these little gods think, well, it's all right, we're going to be fine in our little area there, and a lot of people are going to die off, and that's going to be okay. And I don't believe they understand that Mother is aware enough, and there's other forces besides, because Mother's not all alone in the universe. Mm-hmm. She's going to narrow down exactly where the trouble is originating from and get to them.
Good. Can't be too soon, in my opinion. We have a caller here, John, JMJ12. John, you there?
Yes, I am, Solaris.
The feedback. You're going to have to turn off your radio, I think. Hang on.
It should be off.
Okay. All right. You have a question for John?
No, I certainly do. One, Solaris, brilliant show. John, you're a wonderful guest. I've been listening to you since the beginning of the show, and my body is just vibrating off its tree. I'm just so impressed. And for me, I'm having a lot of similar experiences. And I had a major stroke too at the age of 30. I'm now 55, so the path is similar. Done a little bit of the craft, but certainly not in your league. But I have a question. I'm experiencing a lot of timelines and a lot of different dimensions, and it's a wonderful thing. I enjoy it a great deal. My question is, I have one I don't quite understand. I'm in an existence where the creatures I'm interacting with are either is a cross between what we'd see in mainstream media as a hobbit or Yoda from the Star Wars series. They're nice, gentle people, and the environment is very old world, maybe medieval, but they always, whenever they get close to me, they're trying to bite me. Can you interpret that for me, please?
You're trying to bite you? Actually, they're probably trying to put you in line, or get you back into line. It's, I want to say very primitive, but it's not primitive. Wolves are very, very intelligent. A great deal more intelligent than your average dog. I'm using this as an analogy, okay? And they have a very, now dogs are very much like wolves. The wolves are over and above and beyond this, but they have a very strict social structure. And as long as you operate, I used to have a couple wolves years and years ago that I was taking care of. They weren't pets or anything, but they, people say, well, they're tame. So no, they're never tame. They're tolerant. They tolerate you as long as it seems good, as long as you behave according to this structure. Okay, I'm an alpha male. They understand that. They can relate to that. That's okay. You're an alpha male. When they push the boundaries of something, well, I can't bite them. I don't have the fangs. I mean, I can bite them, but usually I'd use an open-fingered slap across their muzzle. It stings them. This kind of tells them, okay, you just stepped out of line, and you need to remember your place. So, what they do among each other is they may give a nip. Nothing that's going to, like take a chunk out of anybody or anything like that. It's just a nip. They'll bare the fangs, they're telling you something. They're telling you, okay, these are not for nothing. These are for meat. This is, when they smile, it's not mirth. It's to tell you your place. It's like, yeah, when we deal with each other, there's going to be a certain amount of respect, and it's their way of saying it. This may be, like I say, a lot of times when you're dealing with some of these spirits, you're not always dealing with human spirits. The anthropomorphic thing doesn't carry all the way through. There's many different things out there. Some things that may look a little more human, but don't behave quite the same way. You're going to see them smile, and you're going to show. There's going to be a set of fangs in there. It's like, well, is that a vampire? Is he going to suck my blood? Not necessarily. And is he smiling at me? He might be smiling at you. He's kind of telling you something. It may not be threatening. It's just telling you that basically this is who he is. He's not a grass eater. So when you're behaving with him, you can't just take some things for granted. And this may be a part of what you're getting. When they bite you, sometimes it's to infect you.
Their attack zone is always the ears. Is it telling me to listen or to take discernment of what I'm taking in?
Well, it's listening, maybe something a little bit more, because sometimes I'm trying to remember what kind of creature it was, but one of the ways that you understand it is it bites you, and the saliva becomes a part of your DNA too, and it's kind of like then you learn. And it brings you closer. But either way, it's kind of putting you in your place. If it's teaching you, it's to put you in your place in ease or in respect, or to better relate to exactly who and what you're dealing with. And it may not be on human terms. A lot of the dimension hopping, timeline hopping, is you're in a period of time where things are moving a lot faster towards an end. Not the end of absolutely everything, but the end of things as we know them right now, which isn't quite right at all. Things are very bad. But it has to change, and we're into that changing time. So a lot of us that are so aimed, mages, witches of different sorts and stuff, are getting lessons, and you're getting lessons from bigger and broader places and quicker, and there's a lot you got to take in. And for me, I feel this need to write all these books and make all these videos and try to open people's minds to these things, to understand. And it's kind of like, don't be afraid of it. Take it from here. You got this much information. Now look at it from this aspect. Now what do you see? I don't tell you what to see. I show you what there is up to this particular point. But after this, now knowing this, what do you see at this point? Because you've got more to learn. There's a lot. The human race has been stunted for at least the last 2,000 years, where there's been a certain group of people, a certain sect of people that have been holding all the cards and keeping all the cards away from everybody else. They tell you things like Pythagoras is the father of music and mathematics. And it's kind of, I'm sorry, but he was only about 2,600 years ago. You mean to tell me that people before then didn't have mathematics and music? Magellan discovered the way, how the earth, gave us the world map. Well, the Piri Rice maps are at least 500 years older than that. People knew more, and they're more detailed than that. You say Columbus discovered America in 1492. Well, who was these people that was living here for about 30,000 years before he was born? Did they count? So they've taken, knowledge is power, but they've taken and they twisted this power, giving people bad knowledge and holding power back from them. And there's so much that you got to learn, and so many ways to learn it, that there's all of these things. There's people like me. There's other spirits that are trying to teach, and that along the way too. And there's things that you got to learn that aren't quite human. Not everybody's white red, There's all different kinds of cultures, and the universe is still. People have a hard time here on Earth with, hey, this guy's got brown skin. I don't know whether I trust him. this fellow's a Muslim, he's not even Christian, or this fellow's an infidel, he's not even one of us. And it's kind of like, sheesh, and you want to tell me you love God, and God has created all these other creatures that are so much vaster and different than just simply brown skin or white skin or yellow skin, or this kind of culture or that kind of culture, male or female. There's other things. And in order to really grow as a child of God, we are all children of God. And we got a lot to learn about what other siblings and cousins we got out there.
Absolutely. And John, I don't want to cut you off. I just want to say real quick, John, JMJ12, I'm going to let you go. Thanks for calling. We're getting ready to wrap this up real quick here. And thank you very much for calling. John, got you back,
yes.
Right? Okay, fabulous. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm sorry you were on such a beautiful role there talking. And I just want everybody to, one more time, just to know where they can get a hold of you. I know on Facebook, and also you have your YouTube page.
Yeah.
Okay.
YouTube, Stormm 53. I got a bunch of videos still on Witchman 53. Google's kind of blocked me off from it. I'm still trying to get access back to it, but I still got a lot of videos there that are still, can still be watched. A lot of the spellcraft and type things, Witch's Wisdom videos are on there. But the last two, Dimensionalities and Perceptions, is on my Stormm 53 YouTube channel. Awesome.
And I have to tell you, it's been such an honor to have you on tonight, and I look forward to having you back again. It's been incredible to listen to you. You're so wise, and I hope I know they've enjoyed listening to you. I'm getting a lot of good feedback. And you are right, there is so much that people need to transcend beyond the boundaries of that linear thinking. So hopefully
we got
a great path.
Got a great way to go. We can be afraid of the unknown, or we can just get ready to, God, show it all for me.
That's just it, I mean, literally, we need to go full speed ahead and shoot for the stars. That's what I kept saying this year.
Absolutely.
So what do you see? Any predictions for 2014?
No, I'm not really good with the time. I've honestly been expecting a lot of things to happen, as much as 30 years ago, and so I don't perceive time quite so linear as everybody else does. So I'm not really good with it as to what's going to happen this year. I can tell I know certain things are happening and in the mix, but how soon or how far away they are, well, I know they're sooner. They're closer than they were 30 years ago. That's for darn sure. And some of them are like right at the door. Any of this could happen at any time. So me, I'm kind of stuck with it. I got to live one day at a time, and each day like it was my last day, because it really could be. Well, my last day like this, but I don't look at that as a bad thing. I don't look at that as anything to be afraid of. And I think that's a good way for all of us to be. And look to grow beyond it. When you look at this world and say, is that all there is? Oh, hell no.
Sure.
There is so much better that they've been holding back from you. And the thing is, they act like little gods, and it's kind of like, you're going to go further than they are, because they're kind of stuck with this too. They're kind of allured with gold and materialism themselves, and there's so much that they're going to miss. They'll never know. Mm-hmm. And you have that potential. All of you have it. And that's kind of what I've been dedicating myself to.
Oh, yeah. I'm really grateful that you're putting out these videos, and your book is incredible. And I encourage everybody. I mean, this is a free book. So please go in there, all the books, and access them.
Right. This is not to make money, get rich, or anything like that. I got no use for that in this particular plane. I'm looking to move beyond it. You will, too. Eventually, this stuff is only going to be worth garbage anyway. It's just a matter of time. The dollar and all that other kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. It's the eternal things that really are going to matter.
Absolutely. And knowledge and wisdom and knowing how to navigate in other worlds and universes. I mean, that's a big leap.
Knowledge is power, and the more of it you get, the more you have to work with. And that stuff you'll take with you. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So true indeed. And as you ascend out in different dimensions and worlds, do you attract more? Would you say there are more dark type entities designed to control, manipulate, or is it a lot smooth?
There's a lot, but there is always help out there. Mm-hmm. But it takes a certain kind of spirit of yourself to reach for it. There's that polarity thing. and if you got that hopefulness and if you got that love and that in you, you're going to draw that. They're going to know you're there, and they're going to come to your aid when they can. But you have to have it. If you're just dwelling on nothing but fear, there's going to be plenty of things to come around and feed on that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, I totally agree.
There was a saying. It was by Christians. Some old preacher told it to me once, and I thought it was really cool. He says, "The Lord is a good shepherd. The shepherd walks before the sheep. They know his voice. They come to him. He's calm. He's sweet. He's kind. The devil, he's a cattle baron. He cracks the whip, fires the gun, and charges up behind and makes some cattle stoop. Yeah, he rules by fear." Mm-hmm. I'm not so much big on devil and God, and that. I don't believe in a devil quite like they believe in him, but there's plenty of devils. Mm-hmm. And some of them in human form, just plain evil spirits. One big devil? No, I don't follow that. But there are plenty of dark spirits, and if you're just giving in to fear, they're going to come to you like flies to honey.
Oh, absolutely.
If you got a certain degree of love and that in you, you're going to also draw the other ones, and sometimes you're going to find you got a big brother when you don't even know it, just going to show up and stand for you. I've had that happen, so that's why I say that. I've taken on things I don't know when to turn down or turn away from a fight. I've been a total MK Ultra. But sometimes I've taken on bigger things than I could, and once in a while, for the right reasons, something else was standing.
It's been a pleasure to have you on. I wish you all the wonders and the beauty of the universe. And everybody, thanks for tuning in. Everybody at Revolution Radio, staff producers, callers, and thank you, Jerry B. All right, stay tuned for Shiny Side Out. I'll see you next week. Bye.
Listening to Revolution Radio.